Unless you're part of an essential service like the medical profession or emergency services or even media like us, I'm sure most of you are confined to your home and waiting for the lockdown to lift on 3rd of May. So, what do you do during this lockdown, which has forced almost every one of us confined to our houses? If you read, if you watch TV or you watch whether serials or spy movies, whatever, you have a bunch of things to do. So on Simply Nitin this week, I thought I'll add one more dimension to your activity when confined to the house. And what is that? I'll take you back to a bit of history and importance of strategic intelligence to war efforts that India has undertaken in the past 70 years. In fact, there are 3 or 4 major instances that I can speak about where without specific actionable intelligence, India's success in those conflicts and wars would not have been assured. Let me take you back to 1984. In fact, this very month, April, when on 13th April 1984, India launched what is now known as Operation Meghdoot to occupy the heights of Saltoro Ridge, which has 3 major passes. Now, India and Pakistan are squared off on that glacier or around that glacier where the Operation Meghdoot has been on since the summer of 1984. 36 years ago, the operation had begun. Before the operation began, there were sporadic forays from both sides. Mountaineering expeditions were going from India and from Pakistan to try and explore and extend their occupancy of the glacier and of the Saltoro Ridge. The Siachen Glacier, of course, is all famous. You can look up anywhere on Google or you can read my book on Siachen called Beyond NJ 9842, the Siachen Saga, for the entire history of Siachen. Today I am going to confine only to the importance of intelligence. Now, in the winter of 1983, the Research and Analysis Wing got wind of some activity on part of Pakistan in the heights of Saltoro Ridge and trying to get onto the Siachen Glacier. This information was gathered by the Srinagar station chief, then young Vikram Sood, who later went on to become the chief of the RNAW in 2001-2002. Coupled with his information and his intelligence, the RNAW had also gathered suddenly in Europe that the Pakistani army, the Pakistani government, was shopping for a large number of snow suits and special clothing for high altitude deployment. When this was put together and analyzed, suddenly it dawned on the decision makers that Pakistan was planning something big in the Himalayas and more particularly in Siachen or the Saltoro Ridge. And because of this intelligence and Indian Army's own watchful deployment around the Siachen Glacier or below the Siachen Glacier, Operation Meghdoot was launched to preempt any Pakistani advance or Pakistani occupation of the Saltoro Ridge which overlooks the Siachen Glacier. The rest, as they say, is history. So without that early intimation, early information, early intelligence, the planning could not have been done and India could not have preempted Pakistani moves to occupy Siachen. But that's April 1984. Way back in 1971, when India and RNAW were assisting the Mukti Bahini to harass and take on the Pakistani army in East Pakistan, one of the important functionaries of RNAW, K. Shankaran Nair, had a mole, had an informant, had an asset in President Yahya Khan, who was the president of Pakistan that time, in his office. And that mole sent out an information, an intelligence report that Pakistan was going to attack or launch an attack on Indian Air Force bases all along the Western Front, in Punjab, in Jammu and Kashmir, in Rajasthan, in Gujarat, to preempt Indian Air Force from striking inside Pakistan or West Pakistan. This information came to RNAW, it was analyzed, and therefore the RNAW passed this information on to the Indian Air Force, which took precautions to move away all its important assets, the physical assets, the airplanes, the missiles and other stuff. They were hidden or protected and kept away. And for 2 days, the Indian Air Force was on the highest alert possible, expecting an attack from Pakistani Air Force. So on the 1st of December, nothing happened. On 2nd of December, nothing happened. So the Indian Air Force Chief, then Air Chief Marshal P.C. Lal, asked K. Shankaran Nair, you told us that there's going to be a preemptive attack from Pakistani Air Force, but that hasn't come. Shankaran Nair himself was very puzzled, but he said, hold on, this asset of mine inside Pakistani President's office has never been wrong. So let me figure out what's happening and just wait for another 24 hours. And sure enough, on 3rd of December, the Pakistani Air Force launched what they thought was a preemptive attack on Indian Air Force bases and airfields in Western India and failed because India was prepared. It was ready to accept that attack and did not suffer any damage really to its assets or to its aircraft and missiles or other stuff. And that gave India the opportunity to declare war against Pakistan. So in a way, that intelligence information, incidentally, that intelligence information was accurate, but in deciphering the coded message, there was a mistake done in determining the date of the attack. So instead of 3rd December, the analyst at RNAW headquarters thought that it was on 1st of December, whereas the attack was to come on 3rd December as it came. Extremely important information which saved a number of Indian Air Force assets and of course allowed India to say that Pakistan started the war, not us. India won that 13-day war, allowed Bangladesh to come into existence, helped Bangladesh to come into existence, and of course the entire geography of the subcontinent was changed because of that war and that liberation struggle that the Bengalis had launched. That's the second instance. The third instance I can cite of importance of intelligence was during the summer of 1999 when the Kargil war was at its peak. Pakistanis had intruded 7-8 kilometers on the Kargil heights in Dras, Kargil, Mashko, Batalik, all those sectors, and the conflict was raging. At that point in time, General Pervez Musharraf, who was the army chief of Pakistan, was visiting Beijing in China, the Chinese capital. And he felt the need to speak to his chief of general staff back home in Rawalpindi. And he was on an open line from a hotel in Beijing. They had a long conversation, about 20-25 minutes. And within days, the Indian intelligence put out, the Indian government, after much deliberation, put out the conversation between Pervez Musharraf in Beijing and his number 2 in Rawalpindi, army headquarters of Pakistan, where they were speaking about various steps to take and how to attack and how to withdraw and how to camouflage that it was a Pakistani army operation. That was put out in the public. It embarrassed Musharraf, Pakistani army, the Pakistani government, and brought to light Pakistan's perfidy. How that recording was done, nobody knows, and nobody will ever know except for the people who made it happen. Now, without that intelligence, the world would not have come to know what Pakistan was trying to do, to make out as if the Kargil intrusion was by the Mujahideens, by the freedom fighters and not Pakistani army. But here was the army chief of Pakistan openly speaking on an open telephone line which was tapped by RNAW operatives, whether with or without the help of the other friendly spy agencies, we don't know. But that was an important coup in a way in the intelligence world. That's in the Indian context that I'm talking about. There are several other such coups elsewhere which one can cite. And one final incident that I want to point out to you is as late as February 2019. All of you heard of the Balakot attack and how Indian Air Force planes went into mainland Pakistan and destroyed the Jaish-e-Mohammed camp in Balakot inside the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province in Pakistan. But behind that operation was again a scoop, an important information intelligence provided by two of India's intelligence assets inside that Jaish-e-Mohammed camp, who sent back photographs, maps, layout of the buildings, and of course the allotment of quarters to important leaders, who stays where, which story, which room the important leaders were staying. All that information was sent back to India through the RNAW handler in India. This information was distilled, it was analyzed, it was mapped, it was matched with satellite pictures of the Balakot camp. And then finally, these pictures, this information was used by the Indian Air Force Mirage planes. Hats off to those pilots, and hats off to the decision makers who took that decision to go and attack Jaish-e-Mohammed camp inside Pakistan. And of course, rest, as they say again, is history. So why am I telling you all this? I'm telling you all this because militaries win you the war, intelligence agencies get you the information. Without the two acting in tandem and getting their act together, the Indian victories in conflicts and wars would not have been assured. So it's not as if one can do without the other. The military, of course, is the sword arm, it's the feast in the glove, but the first battle or the first information comes from intelligence agencies, who do the unglamorous job, I would say. They are behind the scene, they are never named, the intelligence operatives, but they do an important job for the country and for the military. And that is why it is important to have professional, up-to-date and well-funded, well-trained intelligence agencies, because they are the first defenders of the nation, not just on the physical borders of the nation, but across the world, where they get information which is not available in public domain. They put two and two together and then draw the larger picture for decision makers and the military to take the final action. That is something that I wanted to share with you. Maybe I'll share some of these more interesting stories as we go forward and give you a little bit of respite from the infodemic that has been unleashed by even us and other media entities on coronavirus, or the Chinese virus as we call it. But in that infodemic and that deluge of information that you're getting on the pandemic, I thought I should share with you some of these interesting stories. Until the next time, it's goodbye and good luck. But don't forget to like us on our social media handles, and of course keep sending us feedback. On my Twitter handle, Nitin Gokhale, I'm going to make an announcement which may allow you to participate in the next episode of Simply Nitin in a form that you may not imagine. But do keep looking for that announcement. Until the next time, it's goodbye. Stay safe, stay home.